here at Lighthouse Writers Workshop. Oh, you guys, you're too kind. Thank you so much. I'm really excited about tonight. I've been looking forward to this for a very long time. We get to hear Chris Ransick's words again. This is very exciting. As you know, many of you know, Chris left us on November 4th in 2019, and the world went to fucking hell. And I think that there's some relation between that. I think about him all the freaking time. I think about him all the time. I hear his protestations, his feedback, his advice in my head all the time. I hear his poems all the time, and I feel so lucky that we have these two new books to continue to hear his voice. For all of us, many of us, he was our teacher, he was our friend, he was our mentor. He was our musical accompaniment if you went to the Grand Lake Retreat, an incredibly talented musician. He was just a really good human soul. And I'm really glad we get to hear him again tonight. So I need to thank some people. Definitely want to thank Kathleen Willard for helping get us connected with Middle Creek Publishing. And David Martin, thank you so much for believing in this project and saying, sure, I'll publish 2 books by a dead poet. There's a lot of money in that, right? So thank you, I appreciate that. I think these books are absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much. I also want to thank all of those who worked on the book. If you did some line editing or supported or did some work on the cover, just give us a quick wave. Yes, thank you so much. I also definitely need to thank Shannon and Kelsey for their support in this project, for their belief in it, for making it easy to take his work and get it published, and for working on the covers and things like that. So thank you to Shannon and Kelsey. We're honoring Chris tonight. I think hopefully we will continue to honor him as time goes on. In those quiet moments, we just walk over to our library stacks and just grab one of his books and read one of his poems and think about Chris and just give a thank you to the cosmos for him and for his words. And in a more palpable sense, I'm really very proud to say that, as many of you know, Lighthouse is building our forever home. It's just over, as the crow flies. Crow was one of Chris's favorite animals. Over at 39th and York. It'll be a 3-story building, 11,000 square feet. I'm really happy to know that one of the rooms will contain the Chris Ransick Memorial Library. Chris, as you can imagine, Chris had some poetry books. A couple, 2, 3. He shipped us 13 boxes of poetry books. I don't know how many there are, thousands. I would say thousands, and you probably had to pack them up, so thank you. That was really a labor of love. They will all be in the Chris Ransick Library for anyone to use and to borrow. So that is a legacy that is going to live beyond us, and I'm just so happy and honored that we can do that. So thanks. Okay, so let's get to some poetry. Our first reader is going to be Chris's wife, Shannon Scaife.
Okay, it's up there. I am not the reader in the family, and can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, I'm not the reader in the family, and it was a big stretch. Shortly after Chris died, my friend Carissa and I, we did a little mini book tour in Oregon with Chris's books and read poems, and we had some study groups, and we read it in a couple of book clubs, and it was really stepping outside our box, which is something Chris totally would have supported and loved. One of the things that Mike asked us to do is to maybe tell a little story about Chris with our readings. And that kind of might explain why we chose the poems we did or how we think of him. But the memory I decided to share was why I fell for Chris. And so, I don't know if all of you know, but we met when we were 17. He was 17, I was 18. I was dating some a-hole who liked to go out and impress me with how much money he would spend on me. And, that's how he thought he would impress me. Well, Chris impressed me even more because I had a craving in the middle of the night for a chocolate-covered yogurt popsicle. And Chris went through all of his money in his shoes and his pants pockets, and he dug up his last 35 cents, and he spent it on me. And I just thought that was symbolic of the kind of person he was, is that he would just give it all to you. He would pour out his whole heart and be devoted. And so that's how I felt for Chris. Anyway, so the first poem I picked is Crow Grant's Joe the Ghost Feathers for Dreamtime. I don't drive and you don't fly, and though I see better in the dark and you can talk, we witness the same trees, the same sky, the same sea. Let us travel there and not mind the lateness of day, shadow you throw in moonlight, shadow I am in the branches with this. Thick beak enough to get my one word right. In dreams, I speak all languages at once and can teach you how to do so tonight. I want winter rain on my feathers to rinse sunlight from my back, make me black again, the only color that makes sense. In dreams, you can have what you lack. Here are some feathers from dead brothers. Keep them, they won't need them back. Go solo. Lovers you meet there aren't lovers. Takeoffs and landings are tricky. Your bed being small, the surface rumpled covers. Try to remember everything I've said. I won't repeat it when you see me by day, aloof and taunting as sunrise turns red. Our rendezvous must always be this way. After you surrender to sleep and accept each darkness as a gift, yours till you die. I did just want to say that Joe the Ghost, the cover, is a picture that Chris took, and Chris manipulated it as well. I'm highlighting that. That's part of why we chose it. We just thought it was a perfect match for the theme of Joe the Ghost. This other poem actually was printed in an issue of the Disc Golfer magazine. And we gave this a poem as broadsheets as a prize for a disc golf tournament that we ran to benefit Chris, as a matter of fact. And it's called I Want to Disc with the Dalai Lama. The lost boys with whom I run chain smoke and swear, thicken the air with blunt desires, jesters and wise guys, gamesmen of rare. Ignorance and goodwill, they don't know Leonardo's line, nor the love poems of Neruda. Let me disc with the Dalai Lama at a course hung with mists and moss, where gentle gators return discs to the banks unmarked. How little a missed putt would mean to the 14th incarnation of the Bodhisattva of compassion. I could finally learn to release discs with mindfulness, master secret techniques for speed without effort, glide without anxiety, landing where planned. In my heart, only goodness. In my ear, the laughter of His Holiness wading into thistles in flowing orange robes. True happiness, he'll say, to find a bright disk in a field of tall grass, a good line to the chains, no detectable wind, and deepest quiet in the world.
Thank you, Shannon. That was lovely. I used to always talk to Chris, and I would say, because I knew it would drive him crazy, "Are you still playing Frisbee golf?" And he didn't like that so much. Okay, next up we have Kathleen Willard.
Just the right size, thank you so much. So I was one of Chris Ransick's students, so I want to talk about my encounters with Chris. And I first want to say that Lighthouse Writers Workshop has been very important to me in terms of my development as a writer. At Lighthouse, I've had many wonderful classes over the years. I come down from the North Country. I come down from Fort Collins to do Lighthouse writing workshops. I've been to Lit Fest. I was able to work with Ross Gay, for goodness sakes, and also had the best poetry teacher in my life, which happened to be Chris Ransick. True story. And those of you that know Chris know what I'm talking about. So I'm like many poets. We have manuscripts for like decades almost. We keep revising them and revising them. We keep getting rejected and rejected. And sometimes we're the bridesmaid. We might be a finalist or a semifinalist, which is really unsatisfactory as being a bridesmaid, because you get a dress in your closet and no one pays attention to you. So the class that I took with Chris was an advanced poetry class, and we were working on our manuscripts. 5 of us were looking for the secret sauce. Like, what can we do now to get our books published? And on the front porch of Lighthouse, I learned it from Chris. I learned the secret sauce. After I had I have notes, I don't need notes. After I had the class with Chris, I thought about my work in a brand new way, totally new way. I had new eyes after all that time looking at the same freaking poems. And what happened was I reconstituted a manuscript and David Martin published it. Like really fast for a poet. It was so great. I won the Fledge Chapbook Poetry Contest. Changed my life. You know, it totally did. So changed my life. So David is in the audience that as you know, but there's also 5 other Middle Creek poets, because David publishes Colorado poets in the audience. We had a meetup and we met each other. Like that changed my life. So David has also published my second book, which is really wonderful. And it's really interesting for me. Chris helped me so much, you can't even imagine. And then all of it, I learned about the books, and I had a publisher, and I just sort of I like to talk to people a lot, and I connect, and it happened. So Chris's teacher helped me, his student helped teacher, and that is really, really wonderful. I'm going to read, that is wonderful. So Chris gave me some advice that I listen to all the time, and I tell every poet, and his advice is this: always work on a manuscript, period. And I know that Chris was always, yes, right? Always work on a manuscript. And I'm like, oh, good idea. So that's my advice to you. My advice from me is seek out a small publisher. It is the best ever. There's a lot of literary presses, so seek out that publisher. Always work on a manuscript. I'm working on a manuscript. So that's what I want to say to everybody. Really good advice. So I'm going to read from Joe the Ghost, which is a book that slayed me 100%. It's a wonderful book. It's one of the best books I've ever read. And seriously, I'm not just saying that because, I want your approval. It really is a great book. And what Chris does is he occupies that liminal space between life and death, which is, we're going to all occupy that space sometime. We're going to all occupy that space sometime between light and dark, life and death. And he's documenting it, and he's thinking about his friends, his family, poetry, gardens, and crows. Crows are everywhere in his work. So when I was asked to read, I decided to do something. And I have to also say this, I think it's actually okay to be a ghost, because ghosts are among us. They're not away. They're still here around us and looking out after us. So I really think that that's not a bad thing. So I decided just to flip the book open and see what happened and what poems. I didn't even reread it. And so the first poem I'm going to read is called Joe the Ghost Spacewalks, and I love to write about space so much. So that was funny. Joe the Ghost Spacewalks. Tethered and mumbling poem shards, half awake between dawn and night's second nightmare, Joe rises to test thin legs against gravity. It's either zero, or the opium has made him weightless. He crosses the carpet, a warm, mossy pier, goose flesh rippling up his back, clenching his robe against the absolute cold of space, the only place you can float. 50 years ago, falling from a pear tree, he learned how gravity takes you quick, as do facts. Even in the warm sea off Napoli, he could feel himself sink, follow the turtle deeper. He can't remember, but assumes the womb was tight around his limbs. He's about to abandon ship when the sky clears above the Sitkas and starlight turns the pond platinum. Certain waves have traveled so far, they are all that remains of their star. And the second random poem is called Joe the Ghost Weakens. His ribs have begun to click when he walks. His hips are loose, his breath shallow. The owl in the alder looks away when he walks out in the rain. The scent of leaf mold smells more familiar than ever, and his dreams stop as the knots. He climbs the ladder and almost falls. It takes Joe 2 trips uphill with a half-full wheelbarrow, and each time he's twice as winded. He sings while he works, and in the silence between songs, the whispers are incessant. The shirts that did not fit him before now do. Bugs fly through his face and barely notice, though it tickles him a little. Joe is not afraid of dying, but of the space between living and dying. Once as a boy, he found a mole in the woods, late autumn as the cold began to bite. It shivered in his dirty palm, and then, after a while, it did not. Even a child, or especially one, knows when he's entered the sublime. The crows confirmed his suspicions while he dug a shallow hole with a stick, and he never forgot. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. Next up, we have somebody who could always make Chris crack up. J.D. Fry.
Thanks. I I think maybe the primary, the saying something about Chris. One of the things that Chris meant to me, and one of the ways that he affected my life was he turned me into the writer that I am. And when he found me, I was not that writer. I was unformed. And Chris really was a great mentor for that. And I wouldn't have books published if I hadn't met him. So one of the books I noticed in Temporary House, I had to laugh because I remember having a conversation with Chris in a class where we were talking about forms and poetry rules and things like that, and his advice to me was, know the rules, but don't be afraid to break them. And so here in the collection Temporary House, I find him doing that very thing. He gives us a poem whose title says one thing. It says, the title of the poem is 4 Things to Do with a Dog and Time. It's a great title. But then, as you read the poem, you realize there's only 3 parts to the poem. And you know he did that on purpose. 4 things to do with a dog and time. 1, start simple. Knowing he's devoted and you would go to hell with you, to war or to the 1,000 wars and return. Any walk will do. The columns of the Parthenon hold no particular mojo for dogs. If he's a bird dog, give him room to run, quail to flush from among the gold hummocks. Sorry, hummocks, that's such a Chris word. Learn his exuberance, which he gives away free, as though it weren't priceless. He has less time than you, probably. He knows all your magic and secrets and plays dumb. 2, some dogs swim and some dogs run so swiftly down the green they light small fires where their paws strike the earth. Some dogs will remember you for years, despite absences you could never explain. Some dogs don't care what you do for a living and will lick your hand even if it smells of bad decisions, poor drafts of failed fiction, false handshakes, hesitations. Some dogs will follow you down an Irish beach, let you bury your face in clean, sea-scented caramel fur. Some dogs know all degrees of human aloneness and can absorb the dark blue hues. Some dogs know before you do what the poem is about. 3, sit with your dog on the day he dies. Run a hand down his flank. Sing a slow blues song. And I guess the other piece of my where my soul is shaped by Chris is I just had so much fun with him. We had such good times. And not only was he good at showing people a good time, he was also really good at later describing what that good time tasted like. So here in Joe the Ghost, he's doing that very thing with this beautiful and very sensual poem called Joe the ghost brews a stout. Just a sec. Joe the ghost brews a stout. Hands will have forever in which to lie still. Flavor can only be tasted with a fleshed tongue, trembling organ that serves both thirst and the language of thirst, what we plunge into our hungers and how we tell of that immersion. A glass of stout is a holy bath in cocoa and burnt malt flecked with foam. What's not to like, even if specters can't taste any of it, nor feel the fluid enter their throats and chase chill blue rain back up the sky? Joe stirs the grain and prays. He won't fade until the beer pours from the bourbon barrel on a fair summer afternoon.
Thanks for that, JD. You know, Chris really knew how to have a great time. You know, he was always just so much fun. But he always took his poetry so damn seriously. And I just love that because I think if there was one thing I learned from that was why are you taking this seriously? This is what you do. So next up is TJ Mcavoy. Sorry.
Thanks, everybody. I was a student of Chris's 15 or 20 years ago, and then we just became friends after that, and we kept into contact. I started out as a student of Chris's 15 or 20 years ago, and then we just became friends after that, and we corresponded all the time, and we kept in touch, and we would see each other regularly, and it's an honor to be here. Thank you, Mike, for inviting me. This is called Some Things Joe the Ghost Must Do. Joe must thank the owls for their welcome, screeched before midnight, before the darkness accepted his pale form slipping among towering spruce trunks. He must remember to strip his now useless clothes so he glows as he goes there, luminous, but forever unseen. Joe must learn how to walk silently in such a forest and leave no footprints in moss, cloaking the nurse trees, horizontal mothers layered deeply, dissolving in measures of time the casual hiker ignores from his poor home, ignorance. Joe's quest is to find the moonlight's vertical, marginless shaft in a clearing and bathe in phosphor to be clean for the journey. Joe must sing a death song in tones not known by the living, so they will actually listen for once with their inner ear, the one they tune to their gods of broken promises who offer false, fantastic things without end, drowning out the sonorous, subtle real. Joe must praise the worm and the beetle who will finally cleanse the vestiges of his weighted body, thus releasing him. He must master then the language given only to the truly gone, who speak to no one the necessary wisdom that always goes unheard. And for me, that's what Chris represented a lot. That's why I like to hang out with him. He was a very wise person. And as I said, we corresponded a lot through the years. And he emailed me on June 2019, and he said, I'd like to give you some books from my personal library. There was an author we both admired, and he had some personal books from his library. And I said, of course, you know. And he said, well, he wrote, I like to think that you'll see these books as a special gift, and with them comes my encouragement to never stop writing. And please do keep writing. I believe we can't write if we are closed off to the world, so if nothing else, this signals that your imagination is engaged, receptive, responsive, productive. This is the very definition of living a writing life, and if you are gifted the kind of imagination you have, that's the damn point. That's the last thing he ever wrote to me. Thank you.
Thank you, TJ. Thanks for coming down, and thanks for reading that. Okay, next up we have Jamie Trotter.
This is a disc golf bag. Oh. Hey, y'all. My name is Jamie Trotter. I was a colleague of Chris Ransick at Arapahoe Community College. And I like to think colleague turned friend. I want to thank Lighthouse for keeping the Rancic torch burning. And as his colleague, I've tried to do the same on campus. I try to mention his name in the readings that I hold, and I still got kind of a memorial on my door, my office door, that picture with a few pictures and the Christmas letter that Shannon sent. And we're not allowed to have memorials on campus, but they haven't fucked with my door memorial, so that's cool. In 2008, my wife Kelsey and I had our first child, Savannah, in May, and during that same year, I was also hired by Arapahoe Community College to the English department. And at the time, I was teaching at Red Rocks Community College, and we lived like a mile away from this campus. But I took that job, because the people I worked with at Red Rocks was like, Jamie, you take the first full-time position you get offered. But also because I'd be working with the Denver Poet Laureate, and I was fucking stoked about that. You know? And I sought out Chris right away, and we became friends. But he was also a mentor to me, kind of in an indirect way, I would say. In other words, I learned from him by watching him and admiring him and that type of thing, which means I get in trouble with the administration quite a bit. It's very Rancician, yeah. But for the right reasons, usually fighting for freedom of speech, via journalism or the journalism program itself. for running small classes in the creative writing program. And when Rancic retired, which I was very happy, I'm always very happy for anyone who makes it to retirement in the Colorado Community College system, because that's not easy. He wanted me to have progenitor, and eventually I did come into the position of being a faculty advisor for progenitor, but this is ACC's Art and Literary magazine, and he left a book, and in the front of the book, like a 3-ring binder kind of book, in the front of the book is a letter from Rancic to the students, and it's about how serious it is and how important it is and this type of thing, and also some pitfalls that he was familiar with. And I hand out this letter to my students. Still, this is the 4th year I was advisor for the progenitor. And one thing I would like to do to the literary community who are present is, to invite you to submit. We're open for submissions 2 whole weeks in February. But regardless of the very small window of submission, we receive hundreds, 500 submissions from all over the world. And, Rancic's, and I call him Rancic. That's just one of my things. He called me Johnny Reb, which is, I guess, homage to my Southern heritage. I don't know. He called me Johnny Reb. Anyway, I still see this as Rancic's, kind of journal. During our career together, pretty early on, the college added a disc golf course. Not a big one, but a small one. For the campus size, it was pretty good. And we would set aside time from instead of responding to emails and other bullshit, we'd go play disc golf. And my fondest memory with Rancic in terms of playing disc golf, and mainly we played off campus because you can't drink and stuff on campus, was we went on a trip to Moab together with a group of dudes called the Lost Boys, or that's what he called them, the Lost Boys, which Shannon, in the poem that Shannon read, he mentions. And it was just so interesting to me, and it's really kind of made me feel like Rancic is of the people kind of thing. These guys were our age, so 35 to 50, and they just smoked so much weed, and really didn't have anything else going on in life other than smoking weed and playing disc golf. And it's just really interesting to me, Rancic played disc golf with these guys so much, he was such a part of their group. It's just, I don't know. I mean, obviously he's an amazing scholar and poet, and when I teach his book, Murmur, Prisoner, Scavenger, Thief, when I get to teach poetry writing, and I'm still looking up words, and these guys that he adopted or they adopted him, I don't know which happened, but it's just amazing. And of course, they called him Professor. They didn't call him Chris nor Ransick. He was the professor. And so in Moab, we pull up at night. We get there at 9 p.m. and it was around Halloween weekend. And we got there late, and it's dark. We can't see shit. We don't know where we're going because we had to stop and play disc golf on the way. And so after we arrived there, of course, the dudes, the Lost Boys, they're feeling good on mushrooms, playing disc golf in the night with neon glow sticks attached to the disc as well as to the basket itself. And it was just a memorable weekend, shall we say. Rancic wrote in his last correspondence with me on September 28th, 2019. He said, "What I know for sure is that some of my happiest times were spent with you disking. The laughs came easily, the camaraderie was genuine and mutually felt. The stresses of the job melted away, and I was set free. I am so thankful for all of this." And so I was going to read 2 disc golf poems, but now I'm just reading one. Shannon and I didn't coordinate. But I do want to say also that, yeah, ACC treated Ransick not as he should have been treated, but he did love his students. And I also think that he loved his colleagues. Let's see. So what I did here was write his 2 disc golf poems, and he probably has more than that, on discs themselves. Here's the one you read. This one is from Lost Songs and Last Chances. It's called High Mountain Disc Golf. 4 new discs, silver, orange, blue, and cream. 2 teens, both grown out of their skins, lope like cougars over prickly pear, and leap from dust-dulled rock. Their mother stands beside you on a concrete tee, laughing softly as though everything were funny. Daredevil swallows, dragonflies, heat rising and whirls up the slope. The kids have thrown daughter into a scrub pine, son into oblivion, a wicked long drive over the ravine where a cool stream winds. You throw yours in, hoping to bathe your feet. Low summer sun marks a long day, but there's time yet to finish the course. 10,000 steps will take you to evening, but also to another place. How will you ever say goodbye well? Well enough. Now's not the time, and you walk down the ravine's soft edge, the water beckoning. The silver disc you threw glistening in a pool. It's a clear shot to the hole. The 3 of them watch from above. Thank you.
I don't think I've ever seen a poem read on a disc before. That is absolutely brilliant. I love it. Thank you so much. It really honors Chris. That's fabulous. Thank you, Jamie. JD, didn't we play disc golf with him once? Yeah. Yes. Did we get high? I think we did. Yeah, probably. Oh my God. I used to love to talk to Chris about ACC. I would just get him going, and he would just get so amped up, and I would be like, "Oh my God, he's gonna like walk through a brick wall! Oh my goodness!" It was kind of fun. It made me glad that I never made it into academia. I never got hired. So, thank you for that. Thank you so much. Okay, so next up we have the illustrious David Rothman. Is he still here? Get up here, David.
Two poems from temporary house. Tax shelter. Woman, let me be your tax shelter. When you have calculated down to the last dime what you owe, come to me, and we will open our thick, steely vault to reveal a jewel. Or better yet, calculate upon me, on the freckled skin between my shoulder blades. Cipher away, scribe equations up and down my spine until you find the bottom line, baby. I will be your magic accountant. I'll seek and find your secret stash, and for a fee, line up innocuous columns of lies so the numerals mount toward equilibrium and tip into emptiness. Yes, I can do this, and so much more. I can run my big exemption into the heart of your income. I can rumple your sheets so even the auditor must look away. After all, we've got all night to make these elegant figures balance. Give me your receipts, both of them. Let's have a look at that W-2. I'll lick the envelope. Here's a stamp. A morning without regret. Dry snow, deep as I forget. Bread in the oven, soup in the pot. Bright winter morning without regret. And nothing to do I haven't done yet. Nothing I want that I haven't got. Dry snow, deep as I forget. Mandolin strings against ebony fret. Black coffee cooled with a whiskey shot. Bright winter morning without regret. Do what I must and take what I get. Bury all hurry and should have and ought under dry snow, deep as I forget. The fish forgives the fisherman's net. The field forgives the parking lot. Bright winter morning without regret. What I owe my friends is my only debt. Time's not a clock and can never be caught. Dry snow, deep as I forget. Bright winter morning without regret. So, this is Chris's published oeuvre right there. That's, I think, all of it. Obviously, we would never think that books can capture the full richness of a human life, but as people who are devoted to making them and reading them, they mean a great deal to us, of course. And what Chris left us is exemplary. I was thinking, I can't remember who it was who was trying to come up with an adjective and said Rancician, I think. I suggest Rancic-esque. Rancic, that's so Rancic-esque. I mean, really great poets wind up with adjectives. You know, Eliatic, Keatsian, Shakespearean. Rancic-esque, Kafka-esque, Rancic-esque, come on. So that's my small contribution. But Chris was a beautiful human being and a very gifted writer who also was an educator and an editor and who served. And I was fortunate to meet him on the page. I was editing a journal called Marginalia at Western Colorado University, and I was the poetry editor or guest poetry editor or something like that. in about 1996, 97. And you know, when you're doing this, I mean, the pages come across the desk and you go, I'm getting nauseated, whatever. I think I need a nap. And then every once in a while, something just rises up and smacks you right between the eyes. I had never met Chris. I had never heard of him. And this poem landed on my desk, which is included in Language for the Living and the Dead. It's called A Screwball Rispetto. So the first thing that struck me, of course, is that while I tend not to I don't like putting the form of a poem in the title. Rispetto is an Italian word that, of course, means respect. Everybody needs respect. But it's also an Italian form, an 8-line poem of folk Tuscan origin. So I immediately went, well, that's interesting. And then I read this. A screwball rispetto. Your target, his hands clenching the bat. Grip the ball with a falcon's claw and roll over the top as you release, snapping that red seam down into the plate's black hole. Heat it hard so the pitch comes fast and a bit wild, inside middle so it breaks in toward tender knuckles as he takes a stuttering stride and swings right past. That is so good. And we published it, of course, and then I contacted him. I said, this was probably the best poem of 1,000 to come across my desk. I told him that's really Rancic-esque. Well, I didn't say that. But I knew that someday I would. And I'd say it's Rancic-esque because of its precision, its detail, its incredible observation of what it means to throw a screwball, its humor, its sly wit, and its very careful, although slightly bent observation of the rispetto form. It's all there. It's really lovely. And from that came, hangovers and bowling and things that were mostly legal most of the time. And so I knew Chris for about 22 years before he passed away, something like that. And I can honestly say that aside from the times I had to calm him down so he didn't leave the bar and kill a number of administrators at the college where he was working, it was all good. And he was bigger than me, so that was challenging. I just had to get him to drink a little bit more. I'm going to read, oops, it disappeared, the final note he wrote me. We had him up to Crested Butte, where I am living, to receive an award, the Karen Chamberlain Award for poetry. And it was the last time I think a lot of us were together when he was feeling good enough to handle it all. And we really did have a good time, and we gave him that award, and it was beautiful. And he wrote to me in late August. Oops, that's not the right one. Sorry. Excuse me. 1 second. Excuse me. Here it is. October 2nd. Sorry. October 2nd. Dear David, I did receive your message after the reading at Lighthouse, and I did mean to reply. So this was actually after the final reading at Lighthouse. That was also a wonderful event. It's been rough since, truly difficult beyond description, but I'm here now to say thank you for all of it. The friendship and kindness along the way, the support and encouragement, the literary companionship. I could go on. After all, we have a tradition of long emails to each other. I'm afraid this will be short. There's certainly more to say, but fittingly, it will go unsaid. How eloquent. In that silence, much is intimated. I'm going away soon, but I hope you will recall our good times and laugh and be glad in your heart. I love you, David. I miss him every day. I'm very grateful to David for the extraordinary job he's done on these books. That is truly a service to our community that will never be forgotten. I will never forget it. I'm grateful to Mike and everyone at Lighthouse for bringing us all together, really. Mike and Andrea, both of you, of course. And to all the other readers here who were all part of our fellowship, A Thing of Beauty is a joy forever. Thank you.
I'm not going to cry, I'm not going to cry, I'm not going to cry. Okay, that's all, my little mantra. Thank you, David, for that. It's amazing that, well, there's so much I could say. That he just knew how to say goodbye to everybody in a way that was personal and just so beautiful. So, thank you for that. And I find it's really, I found myself, it was very exciting to hear you read that text poem, so thank you for that. And it's really interesting that you got excited about the rispetto. That captures everything. Okay, next up is Ginny Hoyle.
May I just say, wow. I mean, with each reader, we're just drawn deeper into the memories. And, you know, Chris gave us all so much. When Chris was there for you, he was there for you. He didn't drop you. He stayed in touch. He counseled you. He was a friend. He was an advisor. And it's just so moving to me to listen to all of your voices and see your faces and remember what we've all been through. And haiku has been a big part of my life, so I'm going to read garage haiku from Temporary House. This is a year full of haiku, one for each month. January, frozen everything, blue air engulfs stone, glass, grass, even my hand writing. February, measuring arbor, desiccated vines rustle without my hand's touch. March, peach buds swell early, false warmth, gloves, an iron fist, green gloves, fisted blooms. April, survivors include clematis, coreopsis, weeds, pale, fleshy roots. May, furious hail stops suddenly. Sunlight flares in puddles of pulped leaves. June, 98 degrees, hot wind whips mountains, fires fierce. Coreopsis blooms. July, capsaicin, royals, scorpion's roots store blooming leaves, drunk on hot sun. August, bushel full of fruits, heavier than it should be. This year, 53. September, autumn morning chill, noon heat waits, which will prevail. Breeze rattles bean pods. October, caterpillar curls in spider's web, gold elms were green trees before. November, all remaining vines and stalks achieve final form, graceful agonies. December, white sun on the beds, snow smooth and subtly, that's hard to say. White sun on the beds, snow smooth and subtly contoured, slow time on short days.
Thank you, Ginny. Okay, I'm next. Empty house left to crow. 1. Consider it a gift, a hollow gesture where emptiness signifies respect. Finally, clear the layers of language within cause repeating for years in the canopy. When magpies came in gangs and raided the corn, you rasped way back in your throat, beaked argot of a patient inquisitor, a song twisted with indifference. The house is yours, though you have never read one of these poems. You'll miss our conversations when you taunt the dull neighbor in your boredom and are ignored. 2. Love the bird from below, the worm from above, the wind from within. Under this roof, watch the hailstorm comment on the garden again. Lucky to seek and to find, lucky to end what you begin. 3. Dense prove memories, the wild fastball high and outside that ticked the top of the mitt, the fence post, and dimpled the garage door. Remember the neighbor girl, once small enough to sit in the swing, hauling heavy bags to a waiting van, her father's glare, over his shoulder, the ghost of a woman who haunts the alley. 4. Crows chortle at the magpie funeral, rasp low snide remarks from bare ash branches. What were her chances against a fast-hungry fox? The raucous calls, vortex over a torn, tuxedoed corpse, are operatic, a collective defiance, memory-making. All this amuses those onyx conspecifics whose scolds make a knot of sympathy and contempt. 5. November snow will collapse the greenhouse. Cheeseweed will win and crabgrass dance over every barrier, setting fierce roots in choice soil. Snow melt will puddle in specific places, black ice retreating as sun angles back the garage shadow incrementally per day, proof of planetary motion. At noon, heat will pause and spill itself everywhere, coaxed away finally by lengthening shade. Crow can have whatever remains, husk, pod, seed head, cricket songs as accompaniment, long stretches of elaborate silence. The elms won't live forever and will have to come down in pieces. Imagine the old wild roses free to show their harbored intentions, filling the nook with barbed spines. Let any beetle or worm reign. Let a jungle assert itself under the rank vines, rope tough. Crow can be sheriff with a host of black deputies, cronies if there ever were, each a murderer and a collective innocent of our law keeping its own. 6. The house will echo. Nothing can be done about that. Also, the walls. They've absorbed joys and just enough despair to prove the pain. The blue woman is my mother, transparent and, trust me, gentle. Crow has observed, knows the garden well, will call out names of plants and in general, supervise. Take little of it to heart, but remember that dark bird's tone and repeat as needed. A nihilist's laugh mixed with good advice and salted with accusations. Thanks. Our last reader for the night is Joy Sawyer.
Well, like Jenny, it's been wonderful to hear all these stories and just overlap in so many ways. I mean, Kathleen, like you, the first time I met Chris was in an advanced poetry workshop working on a manuscript. And it was many years ago, but I remember getting his notes back and being absolutely struck by what an incredible reader he was. He wasn't just a great writer or teacher, he was a reader like I had never had before, and it was stunning to me. And so, like JD, I wouldn't have my books without him. And I chose the poem I'm going to read out of Joe the Ghost for a reason. Early on, Chris and I bonded over a mutual like of a poet named R.S. Thomas. Now, I had never met people who read R.S. Thomas, but we almost worked ourselves into fits of glee talking about how R.S., who was an Anglican priest, burned his robes on a beach in protest and turned his life over to poetry. Of course, we were in frenzies over completely different things, but we loved R.S. And so I, too, got a box of Chris's books, and in this poem, R.S. Thomas is mentioned, and I have his R.S. Thomas books. The Library of Joe the Ghost. Some libraries, awash in sun or under glass domes, hold secrets even ghosts don't know. Some the ivy climbs, cheating through windows at night just to read the spines. Some libraries are memories, their contents lost, scattered dust, books that deserved it and books that didn't. Joe's is not Alexandria's. The ghost of Herodotus has not thumbed Stan's false prophet, nor has Plato borrowed Blake's songs of innocence and experience. Not that he would. Joe's library represents what his brain grew fat on, what built the boy into a madman wrestling words to a draw. Bishop is content to lean against Burns, Plath against Pessoa, and Welsh not twins, R.S. and Dylan Thomas, sit unwilling to touch, but in awe of each other on the shelf forever. Who knew Rimbaud and Retke would find common ground, but stranger still are Merwin, Miloš, and Montale, slinging their several languages in animated exchange. At night, the bookcase glows subtly blue from the energy of implied metaphors, bound and unable to test the edges of vagueness. Joe puts them in boxes, horizontal after years of verticality, and words cling to their pages against gravity and time, as if the order matters and the poets were finally right. Each lies still, as usual. Somewhere, an eye and an ear, a keen mind and a soft imagination await the gifts. Somewhere, the poets will sing again, sing like they did for Joe, sing like they might die tomorrow. So it's wonderful to think about all those books he gave Lighthouse that we'll get to read and look through. This is one of my favorite poems from Temporary House. It's called What a Father Tells a Daughter. Don't laugh because you may bear one yourself. No script exists for coaxing nymphs from waves to shore, nor one to tempt swarms back to hives. To visit you, I swam across a gulf. It was to love you that I learned to fly until the day you doubted I had wings. I built your castle out of ancient songs, a moat afloat with books, a tower high. Each child's a mystery, and time's too short to waste in raveling out the stubborn knot. I cut your cord the very day we met and set you free because we're both that sort. Now in your voice I hear a subtle chime that marks the finest form I could become.
Thank you for that. Shannon would like to say a few closing words.
Thank you all for coming. It would mean so much to Chris that you're staying together and holding him close in your heart. A couple months after he died, of course, I was going through the study that was going to become my study now, and I found a letter that he had written to his beautiful family. He wrote on it, "To my beautiful family," and I'd like to read you just a little excerpt because it's so appropriate. "You must go on without me, and that's what happens to us all eventually. So it is right and good that you turn to that now. When my own father died, I was devastated. I'd never felt such grief. It followed me everywhere and was always just barely concealed, except for those moments when it surfaced. Maybe you'll feel that way, but I learned to make a place for it, and you will too. Part of that was the knowledge that I carried him forward with me. I was the evidence of him, which I had to honor by living well and doing right in the world, doing my best as he taught me and expected of me. When my dear mother died, I was more ready and understood better, and so even though it wounded me to the heart, I was able to say goodbye to her and accept that she would never be gone so long as I kept her alive in the way that I lived my life. Remember me as you endeavor to always do your best for yourself and for others. Find happiness and fulfillment in those moments. I'll be there with you in some way that is hard to explain."
What a beautiful lesson for us. Thank you so much for that. Thank you, everyone, for reading and for being here and for honoring Chris and keeping his memory alive. I think that's very easy to do. And I would say whenever you see a crow sitting on a fence or on a lamppost, just give it a little smile. Thank you, everybody. Oh, one other thing. There are lots of books available for sale. Yes, so that's another way to keep his memory alive. Go commerce. Thank you so much, everyone.